Sound of that tractor means it's time for us to go to work. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast. My name is Brandon Lindsay. I will be your host today. So if you look up our next guest's background, it's tough to decide what jumps out to you at first. That he was a Marine Corps captain for 10 years, deployed throughout the world in a tank battalion and as the pilot of a Super Cobra attack helicopter, or that he has an MBA from the highly respected Keenan Flagler Business School at UNC Chapel Hill, or that he held a very special position with Notre Dame football his senior year in college, which I can't wait to talk about that one. There's a lot to take in here, but the reason he's here on the Give Us the Dirt podcast is because for the last 20-ish years or so, he's been a sought-after speaker, author, and consultant for the construction industry. Wally Adamchik has a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge, and he shares it in his consulting and leadership company, Firestarter Speaking and Consulting. He's also the author of 2 books, one intriguingly titled No Yelling, The 9 Secrets of Marine Corps Leadership You Must Know to Win in Business. His philosophy is that you can have a happy, cohesive company culture and better production and profits at the same time. Welcome to the Give Us the Dirt podcast, Wally.
Good to be here.
Exciting to see you.
It's great to be in this building, in this facility. You guys are making a difference.
Is this the first time you've been here to the Academy?
I visited the building a couple months ago on a rainy day, so it was a busy day. But this is what the best-in-class folks are doing. They're taking it into their own hands.
Well, we're so excited to have you today. I appreciate you carving out some time to be on the podcast. I don't know where to start. I've got so many questions that I want to dive in, but we're going to start the way we typically do at the Give Us the Dirt podcast is instead of you introducing yourself or reading the bio that people use when you're about to speak at somewhere, tell us how your wife would introduce you to someone that doesn't know you.
Well, I guess that depends on the day, doesn't it? But I guess she would say, this is my husband, Wally. Oh, what does he do? Oh, he's a speaker and a consultant. Kind of how I would do it, too. And then it would lead into he speaks and consults on leadership and people issues in the construction industry.
It sounds like she needs to be your PR manager.
Well, she's doing a lot of my editing right now, so she's okay with that.
So she's
yeah.
on the payroll.
Yeah.
Wally, that's great. All right, so we're going to start with the early years. I read somewhere that your parents had a huge influence on you and kind of where the trajectory of your career went. So talk to me about the early years. Talk to me about that influence from mom and dad.
Well, mom and dad were greatest generation. My dad grew up in the Depression, mom just after that, and he joined the Navy in World War II when he was 16, and he was classic greatest generation. Did what he had to do, came home, got to work, took care of the family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And take care of the family, he got into construction, just a blue-collar guy doing good stuff and, not educated at all, really, but a super dude, solid foundation, solid values, et cetera. But the flip side of that is he was always very supportive of my mother. And when I was young, he would come home from work, 4 p.m., something like that, because, construction guys would start real early. And she'd go referee basketball games, like the CYO and the Little League and stuff like that. Well, fast forward, my mother was the first woman to referee in Madison Square Garden. So I know a little bit about women's empowerment and, this whole DEI thing. I kind of grew up under the umbrella of that. And now with a daughter, Division I athlete, we're kind of reaping the benefits of some of the trailblazing mom did. So I grew, I had a great home. I guess maybe you don't realize how good it is sometimes, but the solid foundation of work ethic, right? My brother was in the trades, union labor guy in New York City. I was, I was a helper on jobs, and that's just where I come from, and that's why coming back into the construction world after I get out of the Marine Corps, it just feels right. When I'm hanging out with your guys, when I'm teaching your guys, it's like I'm hanging out with my brother.
Those are your people.
Yeah.
I love that. And the fact that, so your brother and then also your dad was in construction.
Yeah, they were both construction guys, yeah.
Okay, so you got a taste of that early on, and it sounds like your mom's an incredible person. So that's, I wish I had more time to dig into that a little bit. That's an incredible story. But talk to me a little bit about that. So do you feel like, looking back on that, we find all the time that people in construction have a long history of construction in the family. So is that something that just stuck with you and something that you knew that you would end up in the construction industry, or?
No, I wouldn't say that, but that fundamental, respect, for people, that not afraid to get dirty, that affinity, and many of us, no matter what industry you're in, we're legacies. Military kids often have parents in the military. Teachers often come from. You just kind of see that legacy thing. So I had no, I was the American dream, right? That I had it better than my parents had it, and they were able to help me go to college. Now the Marines helped me go to college too. So I went to college, and I thought I was going to be in the Marines forever, and the one thing leads to another, and again, here I am. So never had that I'm gonna be in construction stuff, but never had the ew, what's that either.
Yeah. So college, let's talk about that. Notre Dame, top-notch university, top-notch football program. You held a very special position with Notre Dame football.
Yeah, I was the mascot when I was there. I was the leprechaun. So, the requirements being you have to be under 5'7", so I made the cut there. But like many things we do, Brandon, just more of an honor than you realize while you're doing it, but an incredible experience, in front of 65,000, 70,000 people, every football Saturday. And I don't know if that's what helped me be more comfortable in front of people as a speaker or something like that, but it was a heck of a time.
It had to. You were leading 65,000 people in that costume, right? So was that the only requirement? Was a height requirement?
No, there are a couple of other things you had to do. You had to do the Irish jig. You had to be able to do some stunts and stuff like that. But the unique thing about being the mascot at Notre Dame is, most mascots wear a big head, right? And you can't see them. And often they don't talk. That's kind of part of their shtick, right? Well, at Notre Dame, it's you wear a bowler and a vest, and it's face to face the entire time. So the interview in the whole process was one of the highest scored events, right? And it was a very diverse group panelists. So maybe just my gift to gab helped me get into that in the first place.
I didn't realize that. So you actually had to talk.
Yeah, you do. And we would do visits at children's hospitals, those kinds of things, and again, talk to people and face to face like you and I are doing right now, not hiding behind some big head. So a little bit different than a lot of mascot experiences.
Well, while you and I share that, I had a similar mascot experience, but I was one of the ones with the big head that couldn't talk.
Right.
My first job was Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, that's special. And
so I was Chucky. I actually had to dress up in the costume, but the number one rule in the Chucky costume, you can't talk.
Yeah.
So, but you know what? I can respect the fact that in that costume, you get to be whatever you want to be, right? Mm-hmm. And so how does that translate into your success as a leader and a consultant and speaker? Did you pull anything away from that experience that has helped you?
I just, again, being in front of folks, being on the microphone, being on television, when CBS Sports is going, do something, and there's nothing happening. There's it's that lull in the play, and they want to get something. You're going, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to jump around and do something.
You have to keep the energy up.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to keep it moving.
Exactly. That took a lot out of me.
I love it. That's cool. All right, so after Notre Dame, you joined the Marines.
Yeah,
first, thank you for your service.
That's fine. I'm happy to do it.
What led you that direction?
Dad was in the Navy. I guess I grew up, quote, being a patriot. I think I still am. I occasionally weep when the national anthem plays. This is a phenomenal country. We have some issues these days, but I've been to many. I think I'm over 40 countries, and yeah, we may be screwed up, but we're screwed up less than everybody else is the way I say it these days. And we need to remember that. There's so much goodness here happening every single day, and that which unites us is far greater than that which divides us. But it was also a way to pay to college too, right? Basic blue-collar family, they had a few bucks put aside, but if I was going to get a degree, a 4-year degree, I was going to help contribute to it, and fortunate enough to get a scholarship with the Marines, and fortunate enough to get accepted to Notre Dame, and then go get a commission and go have some fun.
Well, you call it fun. That sounds pretty scary. I mean, you were in some pretty tough situations.
Yeah, you know, I mean,
tank battalion, helicopter pilot.
All good stuff looking back on it. As my wife, I would, you know, we'd go do stupid stuff in training and you know, near-death experiences, and I'd come home to say to my wife, I said, it was good training. She goes, well, that means it was either stupid or dangerous or both.
Yeah, it's both.
Yeah.
So what do you, wow, that shapes you as a person, right? That experience changes everything, I can imagine. So what pieces of that experience for you and being in the Marines have helped you with what you're doing today? What pieces do you still carry and have made you successful?
You know, you asked me at the outset about my family, and I said how foundational that was to me and who I am. Well, the Marine Corps is the second part of that, right? I would say confidence, for sure, that there is no situation that I can get it put into. There's probably very few situations that I can get put into and be overwhelmed, right? It's like, you know, adapt and overcome, whatever it is. We'll figure out a way. Chuck Yeager would say, I tried A, I tried B, I tried C, I got to create D, right? There's got to be an answer. So that being able to roll with it, that flexibility is very valuable today, simply because of the dynamic environment we work in. Just yesterday, I thought I was going to Albuquerque on Monday after going to Maine and Chicago over the next 2 days, but all of a sudden that trip is out, and now I got another trip coming in on Monday, and just rolling with it, right? So that confidence that I can take what comes at me, and in a dynamic environment might be the kind of the inner piece of it. The outer piece of it is learning to work with a diverse set of people who all come from different backgrounds, but all have the similar values. And the whole values thing these days is, you can't read a leadership book without reading the values piece. And I think it's almost becoming like a buzzword, right? Well, why? Well, because we come from diversity, north, south, east, west, racial, gender, whatever diversity. And I mean it in the capital D, not the small focus, we're going to do a class because the government says we have to do it, but, diversity of thought and a punchline from a leadership perspective is how can I lead and manage people who don't look and act and think like I do? Mm-hmm. Well, we have to create a place where we have unifying values. Now, whatever you want to call those things, you've got your words, other people have their words. The words are similar. The words matter nothing. It's what that looks like every single day when I step on your job site, when I walk in your building, when I see you interacting with customers, all of those things. That's why values matter, because it gives people something to grasp onto and to say, I want to be part of that. Let's go back to the Marine Corps experience. Nobody ever walked into the Marine Corps recruiter by mistake, right? They knew exactly why they were going in there and what they were signing up for the most part, right? Nobody walked into the Coast Guard recruiter by mistake, right? So the point is that values attract or repel. That's fine because we don't want the wrong people in the building, right? So when we look at what you guys are doing here, and what you're creating with your values and your culture, there's another buzzword, people begin to look around and go, I want to be part of that, right? There's plenty of people moving dirt in this market. Why you? Well, there's something cool going on there. There's something I want to be part of. And then when we come in and we begin to talk about, safety, integrity, all the words that are your words in the way that those words matter to you, people then go, oh, I want to be part of that. Take it one step further. If we look at the mistrust in organizations and institutions and this kind of disassociation from work and hiding behind Facebook and TikTok and all those things, giving people a place that they can come to and feel like they're part of something, I think is the future of work.
Wally, that's incredible perspective on that. And I really want to go into that deeper because you said something that I feel is very important there, that we've got people all the time talk about culture. They talk about core values, but in a lot of cases they have become buzzwords. There's something that you see on the walls of the offices. There's something that you talk about during orientation, and then that's it.
Right.
So through your company and through your experience, you've been able to go to companies and show them, hey, this is how your core values become part of your culture. This is how you've got to make sure that this is not just something they hear once, that is something that they're thinking about every day, something that they're even taking home with them.
Yeah.
And so through your company, which I want to talk about that a little bit, you go on, you come out of the military, and then you decide, hey, I'm going back to school. Mm-hmm. What was the reason for that, Wally? Why go back to get the MBA?
Well, I was a history major at Notre Dame, so I didn't know a lot about business, but I was going to be working in business, and I had a little bit of tuition assistance from the Marine Corps, not a lot. Was working, believe it or not, I was working for Arby's Restaurants at the time. Mm-hmm. I was a regional manager, phenomenal job. Talk about labor issues and P&L experience and all that. It was like a mini MBA before I got my MBA. But the MBA was the formalization of my understanding of business. And, all the things, strategy, marketing, et cetera, production, et cetera. So, and it was just part of how I was brought up. I mean, my parents brought me up that education's a good thing. Read a book, look it up, whatever the case may be. So that was just a logical extension of my youth. And again, when I did it, I didn't realize how important it was. But now, again, as a consultant, all of that education is in me, high value.
So when did the Firestarter Consulting Group start? And when did you realize, hey, I've got some knowledge, I've got some experience here that I think can translate into value for some of these construction companies?
Yeah. So while I was getting my MBA, because again, I was at Arby's at the time, buddies in the class, and I'd always look in the want ads and see what my competitors were doing, kind of market survey and stuff, and found this place called FMI, and they're management consultants in the construction industry. Many listeners will know who they are. And talked to a buddy of mine who was in the class. His dad was a big GC, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I know those guys." Anyway, he knew him really well, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I might go work for him too." And this was just a buddy of mine, high credibility, right? And one thing led to another. I ended up working for FMI. I had a great run of a couple of years with them. They're still in business, good firm, but I was a young consultant. I was traveling a little bit too much. We had a baby, and my wife gave me the ultimatum one day that if you want to travel this much, go back in the Marine Corps alone. So I had a decision to make, and I could have gone into corporate America, or I could have stayed doing what I was doing and gotten divorced, or maybe figure out a way to do that on my own. But so the FMI is what got me back into the construction industry. We had some philosophical differences maybe about how we got into market and how we supported clients and some of that stuff. Life goes on. Here I am 20 years later.
So what's the goal from the beginning? I'm sure it's changed over the years, over the last 20 years almost, right? Is that?
Yeah.
So I'm sure it's changed over that time, but was the goal in the beginning professional development? Or was it working alongside of these business owners and helping them to structure their organizations and be successful in achieving their goals? What was the original goal?
I've always been a leader guy,
yeah,
right? Whether it's frontline or executive level. And I think that's one of the unique things I bring is that because of my, kind of family experience, I can stand in front of your foreman and get along with them, and they get it, and they get that I get it, and I respect them. But by the same token, having been, a Notre Dame grad, an MBA, I can sit across and often do some of the executives of some of the largest construction companies in North America and have an intelligent, articulate conversation with them. So I'm able to alter my approach. And the approach needs to be different, right? I mean, what the foreman need to hear, leadership is leadership, right? Chocolate chip cookies all have sugar, flour, and chocolate chip cookies, but there are also nuances to those recipes. So, the foundations and fundamentals that a leader at the front line level has at the executive level are the same. However, the way you manifest that and the way you make it real does differ, right? And what those frontline leaders need to hear so that they can then deliver something is a little bit different. And some of that might be related to education and experience that then the execs need to hear. So I am blessed in my ability to move, I'll say seamlessly, between the front line and the executive level effectively.
That's interesting because you talk about your ability to adapt to your audience and to the leader, whether it's at the, at the senior level or it's on the job, yeah, right? And you're talking to that job site superintendent. Tell me about the differences between professional development and teaching leadership in the construction industry versus other industries. Is there a difference And how does it look in the construction world versus banking, technology?
Well, I don't have the data for the other worlds. It's a little bit more anecdotal, but I have enough friends that speak there and live there. Many people are familiar with the DISC profile, for example. We've done 20,000 of them in the construction industry. Emotional intelligence assessments, we've done 5,000 of them in the construction industry. In other words, we have data that confirms what this industry looks like. This industry is peopled by task-oriented, primarily male, task-oriented, often detail-oriented, get-her-done people. And that's a wonderful thing. They go out there and do phenomenal things. They get the task done. However, there's often collateral damage, and it's because they're not people-focused, right? 90% of the people you run into every single day in the construction world are going to be task-focused. Now, they may have some people focus in them too, but if I'm playing the odds, I'm playing these guys don't want to care about the relationship. The, hey, buddy, how's it going kind of stuff. Yeah, that plays once I've established my credibility through my ability to get the work done. So that does not mirror the general population. Right. So when we say, the industry is different, well, every industry is different, but specifically when we talk about personality profiles in the construction industry, it is different. So now I'm sure there are other industries out there like that, but we don't look like banking. We don't look like nursing. We look like construction. So then how do we alter the message? How do we tailor learning so that these task-oriented people who don't want to be in the room in the first place, they'd rather be out moving dirt, right? Welcome that. And not only welcome it, but then apply it. Education without application is a waste. Education with application is ROI.
So what is the secret to that? Because you describe exactly what we face, and we've been trying to work on over the last 5-6 years here at Hoopaw Grading, is that you've got a group of people that are very task oriented. They're used to being managers. They're used to getting the job done, going out and executing a task. And now you're asking them to drop the manager hat, put on the leader hat.
Yeah.
And that's going to require skills outside of just executing the job. It's going to require development skills.
Two things, I think. First of all is helping them understand their job description. Right, and a well-written job description would say that there's supervision, there's management and leadership, right, and then what's that? So now I got to educate in what are those three things? What is supervising? What is managing? What is leading? And then they go, oh, okay, I've never really done that before. Neither has my boss, by the way. So now I don't have a role model in this. So we create the expectation, right, of here's what the expectation is around management and leadership, and then we teach them how to do it, right? Here's what it really looks like. So let's talk about the daily huddle. Oh, you mean that toolbox talk thing we do every day where we just kind of fill out the form? Yeah, let's change that conversation a little bit. Here's some ways you can do a daily huddle that it becomes an engagement strategy, right? Engaging our people, right? So that when we lean into them, they lean into us. We know that highly engaged people produce better work, safer work, et cetera. So you take an existing technique called, the toolbox talk, daily huddle, whatever phrase you want to use for it, and then modify that a little bit and make it a leadership tool. Oh, now I see. These are smart guys. They're not MBAs, but they're really smart guys. Smart in a different way, maybe. And when we have that conversation of, look, dude, here's your expectation, and then now here's how you do it, and here's why it matters, right? And here's what the end result is.
That right there, I think, is the key, and that's what we experience too. When you're able to take that and say, here are the tools to make you a better leader, but let me show you how this is going to help you. And let me tell you the reason why this is going to be important. You're not going to lose people. People aren't going to leave your job. You're not going to constantly be training new people in the job. You're not going to have safety incidents. You're going to have more free time to go do the things that you want to do.
Right. Life gets better.
Absolutely. There's freedom in that.
When you first started putting GPS on dozers, people were like, oh, what the heck is this, right? But once they realized that the tool was there to help them and it did, in fact, make their life easier, you get guys out there who wouldn't use, where's my GPS, right? Similar concept here is is educate and then apply. And I think it's one of the places where many trainers and a lot of education fails is, how do I apply this? Right? I can sit in a classroom, that's great, but what do we do as leaders and as educators? You as a leader, me as the educator, to make it applicable and to encourage them to apply it. I know folks that in some places they go to, their world of concrete, world of asphalt, NSSG, whatever. And when they come home, the company expects them to give a class, a 15-minute class. Hey, you were there for 2 days, but share with us something you learned. Wow, that makes you pay attention in a different way, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Then you've become the teacher.
So you come here and, you guys with this incredible facility, when you go out on job sites or any of the senior leadership goes out on job sites, hey, I saw that you were in XYZ training the other day. How'd that go? Oh my God, they're paying attention, right? And that, paying attention makes them pay attention a little bit more. And that's one of the duties of leadership.
Wally, you have done a fantastic job over the last 20 years unlocking the keys to success for the construction company. You've seen construction companies all over the world. You've seen successful companies. You've seen companies that are struggling. So we're going to ask you to give us the dirt here and tell us, what is the common thread between the companies that you would consider the successful ones? What is that one? What's the secret sauce for those companies? What are they doing right?
So the leadership guy is going to tell you it's not about leadership, right? It's an and statement. So it's superior people or superior leadership and superior processes, right, to create superior results. So I can have superior people, but bad processes, bad accounting system, bad estimating system, bad equipment, et cetera. The results will be okay because the people will make it happen, right? Flip it around. I can have superior processes like, man, we can measure, we can, et cetera. But I got people who are unenthused. Heck, I'll probably have worse results than the previous scenario. Superior processes and superior people equal superior results. You have to have both. Danger these days is technology has created a place where we're very process driven. And you in the corner office and Ryan and all those guys can be, digging deep into cost on a project and almost micromanage, right? So we've got technology which enables certain behaviors, but it also enables certain bad behaviors. But the punchline, as I said, is superior people and superior processes. Got to have them both.
That's tricky. You're right, because that's a fine line. The processes can be so tight that you don't have the flexibility to move and cover. You don't have the ability to pivot when something goes wrong.
And we spend our time managing the process, and we forget that there's people out there doing this thing every day. And, is the tail wagging the dog at that point? That you got to fill out this form on the iPad because ... Well, maybe we don't.
Maybe you don't. I love that, because you do hear that a lot. While you hear people say it's the people, it's leadership. But you don't hear people say, yeah, but you also got to have the processes. Because if you don't have the process, number one, you can't manage it. You can't measure it. You can't see if you're actually achieving your results, and you can't learn how to adapt, but you also can't replicate it, right? And you can't, when that leader moves on and you've got that next person to step on, you don't have a playbook to hand them and say, this is how you win.
And that's why the processes matter, right? Because then you have replicability. It means I can estimate consistently, which means that I can execute consistently. I need to train people to do all those things. So it's definitely what we'll call an and statement, right? And the people and the process. One other thing, your question about, hey, what do the best ones do? The best ones walk the talk, right? So everyone's got their values now, but in some places they're real and in some places they're not. So the places where people walk the talk, and this gets really hard as you get bigger. You had Alan Cahill a few weeks ago, and he would agree that the bigger you get. I mean, the last place he wants to be is in the office. He wants to be out on a job site. You want to be out on a job site. Well, when you're running, you get more zeros there, 100 million, 500 million, a billion, whatever. It gets impossible to get to the job site, right? So the walk the talk on the values piece and the remembering where the money is made piece is probably the part 2 and 3 after the technical, superior people and superior processes answer.
Great. That's great. I think Alan would appreciate that too. And Alan's great. They're doing a lot of things right. They would definitely have that common thread there. And so on the flip side of that, you've told us about the common thread. You've told us the secret sauce for the ones that are doing it right. What is the common thread for the ones that just can't seem to get it together? What is the piece that's missing?
I'll give you two answers. The first one is a generic kind of lack of integrity, right? And not that they're liars or anything like that, but what they say is going to happen doesn't. Now they may be, by the way, but hey, these are our values, but we don't live up to them. Hey, we're gonna, you'll have next weekend off. Oh, you got to work next weekend. Well, and that's a simplistic example, but a lack of integrity, right? What we say is going to happen is not what happens. The next one I would say at the family level is when family relationships bleed into the workplace and make it very dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And, my nephew is the vice president of whatever because he's my nephew, but he's a knucklehead and we really need to get rid of him. But then my sister will get mad at me and et cetera.
In this industry, there's a lot of that.
There's a lot
of family businesses. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to Griffin Masonry episode. We had those guys in, and they talk about the fact that, it's family business, but it doesn't matter if your last name is Griffin. Mm-hmm. Everyone's part of this family. And I love that concept that it is a family business, and we want this to feel like a family business. I think that's one of the intriguing components of our industry. But yet everyone's got to feel like they're an equal member of the company and an equal member of the family.
Yeah, I've heard that cliche go the other way, right? It's family business, which means, what dad says happens, or means we fight like we're family members and we don't really get anything done. But yeah, that family culture, right? That we all feel like we're part of something, that when, leadership shows up, it's like, I want this guy to be here. Like when my father showed up, I wanted him to be watching me play ball or whatever the case may be. So, that's one of the reasons. I think that's the failure reason for a lot of firms is they don't make the evolution from family, and I don't even want to use the word business. They don't make the jump to being a real business, right? It's like they're just kind of, they're making money, but it's not. It's the professionalization at some point that needs to happen, and it can happen. And honoring the people and retaining the culture and all those things. You don't have to lose your soul to create a business.
Well, those two things make your job difficult. Integrity and family business. That's a tough spot for you to walk into.
I need to learn when to say no to certain clients.
I understand. Wally, tell me about the book. I love the title of this book.
Oh, No Yelling?
No Yelling. So that is not the image of a Marine drill sergeant.
But when you look at the cover, that's exactly what you see.
Right.
So I got out of the Marine Corps. I'm in consulting. I'm in the speaking world, and everybody says, "Oh, you need to write a book," right? And it's true. It becomes a big business card. In theory, you're able to increase your fees. Sign me up, right? So rather than it just being Wally telling war stories, because that's not very interesting, I interviewed 50 Marines on active duty, 50 Marines in the civilian sector in all industries, and then found the common stuff, right? And there were kind of 9 buckets: integrity, technical competence, set the example, values, etc. And one of the interviews, the guy said to me, we're having this conversation. He goes, well, it's not about yelling. He goes, we need to get people's attention. We need to, make sure that we're being heard. But it was, quote, it's not about yelling. And I'm like, ooh, there's something there. So yeah, no yelling. And then exactly, you're right. It's that kind of juxtaposition of people go, well, that is the Marine Corps. Well, if you watch the movies, it is, and that would be a stereotype. And if you're basing your impression of the Marine Corps based on Full Metal Jacket, that might be a wrong perception. Similarly, if you're basing your perception of the construction industry on what you heard from your uncle 12 years ago or your buddy who had a bad experience working in high school, maybe we need to take another look at that.
I think that's a common misconception, that's how construction is. That's just the way the industry is. That's how the Marines are.
I was, I was at my trade association, the National Speakers Association, right? The trade association of experts who speak professionally. So 2 years ago, maybe 3 now, we were at our national convention. It's at the Gaylord Rockies, right? The Grand Ole Opry Rockies. I don't know if it's $1 billion facility, but it's certainly many hundred millions. talking to somebody, a relatively new speaker, and they always do, oh, what do you speak on? I'm a leadership guy, right? Oh, what qualifies you to speak on leadership? What really goes through my mind is what qualifies you to ask the question. But anyway, I was in the Marines for 10 years. Oh, okay. Who do you speak to? Construction people. And then they go, leadership in construction? And it's kind of that dog with the high-pitched sound, right? And I say, who do you think built this thing? Right? The architect didn't build it. Mm-hmm. The engineer didn't build it. You had guys out here with blue jeans and yellow machines and, and all the way through to the finished trades, working in a complex, dynamic environment where there's a lack of information, there's task orientation, there's conflict simply because of the nature of construction. And check out this facility, right? People have no idea. Once again, it's a story not being told.
Well, and whose fault is that? That is our fault. And that's exactly why we've got the podcast. Yeah. That's exactly why you're on the podcast, is that we have the responsibility to change the perception of the industry. That's up to us, and we can't wait on anyone else to do that.
Well, and I'm going to challenge you there a little bit. I hear this all the time, like the industry needs to change the industry. And I say, and I'll hear it up north, well, the unions need to get this different. No. If you're waiting for the industry to change the industry, if you're waiting for someone else, you need to change your world, right? You guys are changing your world with what you've done with this facility. The podcast, sure, there's an industry aspect to it, but there's a recruiting aspect to it and attracting, I get it. So we need to take control of our own environment. There's a lot of initiatives out there, more than there ever have been, about getting, kind of the trades are okay. You need not have crushing debt coming out of college, those kinds of things. But with that said, work-life balance sucks. Work-life balance sucks. Did I mention that work-life balance sucks? And our research shows that our People in Construction report is coming out next week. When we did it 2 years ago, 50% of field supervision said they had reasonable work-life balance. Now, they define reasonable. And we know in our world that reasonable is probably a 10-hour day, a 50, 60-hour week. And I don't even know if that includes the planning, pre and post. A couple months ago, my daughter was doing some social media interning for a big client of mine while she was waiting to start her master's in Atlanta. So, going out on job sites, taking pictures, Instagram, all that stuff, which they realized they needed to start to do. And in fact, now that she's moved on to get her master's, they're going to hire somebody to do it. They realize they need somebody to do this. So she got to meet a lot of people, right? And she's like, Dad, these guys are crazy. The hours they work, the lack of balance that they have. She goes, my friends do not want to do this. How strong an indictment is that? With that said, this was fascinating. Just read 2 states in Australia, North South Wales, and one of just the government just mandated or passed a legislation that says when you bid our work, it will be a 5-day work week. So the owner changing procurement is what's going to change the work-life balance thing a little bit. Yeah, there's going to be some cost associated with that, but it's a level playing field because you're bidding the job for the owner. Another client I have considering a 4-day work week.
Really?
Now the equipment guys are freaking out because they're not going to get their utilization.
And that's a game changer in the industry.
But again, these kinds of things. Another client, paving guys, right? Who, hey, if it rains, we work Saturday. Saying, look, we guarantee you 1 weekend off a month. We're going to shut the company down on this weekend, and I don't care if there's a hurricane 4 days before and we need to pay. We're going to shut down so that people can make plans. Unheard of 5 years ago.
Wally, that's mind-blowing to a construction company owner, right? You hear those things and you say, man, that is radical. How is that going to work? But that's exactly the kind of thinking that we've got to get to. And I couldn't agree with you more that the change has to happen. We all want change for our industry, but that change has to start from within. You have to get your own house in order. You have to work on your people, your processes, and walking the talk. Isn't that what you said? Those are the common threads, and that happens within.
Yeah, so if you tell me people are most important asset, and then you make me work Saturday and Sunday again.
Are they really?
By the way, there are times we need to do that, right? There are absolutely times we need to do that. But that's just the way it is. Yeah, not so much. Yep.
No. Wally, thank you so much. You get paid big bucks to go to these companies and help them to understand what's going on, what they can work on, how they can get to a level of leadership that you describe in your books. Right now, we got you for free on the Give Us the Dirt podcast. So our listeners, what is one tidbit of advice that you could give to our listeners right now? If they had to start somewhere, where's the place that they need to start first?
Self-awareness. If you're going to be a better leader, you need to understand you. There's a lot of ways to do that. You can begin to take an assessment and learn a little bit about yourself. Journaling, ooh, what the hell is that, right? But getting in touch with you. Stereotype, males are not good at this. We've done enough emotional intelligence assessments to understand this. Empathy, right? If you don't want to spend any time working on you, work on your relationships with other people. Task-oriented industry. How can I move from a, well, sucks to be you mentality to a, man, tell me how you feel. Let's talk about that mentality. Is this making it softer? No, right? Nowhere in this entire conversation will you ever hear me say lower the standard. This is a very important point, right? When we talk leadership and culture and values and respect and empathy and all these soft words, right, Brandon? It's like, oh, well, we just want to coddle people. No, coddling is when you lower the standard for somebody who can't get her done, right? You never heard me say lower the standard. In fact, the standard is higher than it's ever been because of owner expectations and the difficulty of getting there with some of the labor challenges we have. So leadership and people is a path. My quote, people are the best profit strategy we got. So self-awareness and empathy might be two of the biggest. Hey, I can begin to work on those things, and that's a great start.
Wow, you gave us two there. I feel like
little bonus. Yeah.
No, Brian McMahon is the owner of Hoopah Grading, says that all the time, that if you want to figure out why things aren't going right and why things aren't working, you start by looking in the mirror. That's where you go, and that's exactly what you told us. And it starts with that self-awareness and understanding what your role is in that, and that as a leader, the buck stops with you.
It does. And oh, by the way, you can also ask for people for help. Right? Hey, I'm not sure how to handle this one.
Yeah.
What could we do? The people might have an idea for you.
Well, and that's where you come into play, right? So how does someone find out about Firestarter? How does someone get in touch with you?
And
ask for help.
Yeah, constructionleadership.com.
Construction
right?
Leadership.
I wrote the book on leadership, Construction Leadership from A to Z, and I own the website, constructionleadership.com. If they go to that, man, LinkedIn, I post every single day on LinkedIn, every single weekday right now on LinkedIn. So, yeah, constructionleadership.com is the best way to do it. And, call me, email me. Hey, I got a question. I love those conversations, right? That, so many people, I don't want to bother you. I don't want to waste your time. Like, this is what we do, right? It's like an owner calling you and saying, how would you move the dirt? Well, we're not putting an estimate in. We're not bidding the work. We're just going, well, that's how we do it. And then maybe we get a chance to do the work or not. But we've just helped. That's kind of what it's all about.
Well, and I will attest to that Wally, as busy as you are and as in high demand as you are still very accessible. And I appreciate you sacrificing your time to be with us today and to share just a little bit with us on the Give Us a Dirt podcast. If we go to constructionleadership.com, can we get your book there too?
No, go to Amazon for that.
Get it on Amazon.
It's kind of funny. Business philosophy, I'm not about selling books. Right? I don't want the last relationship you and I have to be me holding out my hand for a $10 check, right? You can go find the book. They're on Amazon, but it's more important to you can find them.
Go get the book.
Yeah.
Go get the book. I encourage you, go check it out. Get it on Amazon. It's called No Yelling, The 9 Secrets of Marine Corps Leadership You Must Know to Win in Business.
Well, and then there's Construction Leadership from A to Z, which was my second book. And that one's pretty cool because every chapter, first of all, it was sourced from the industry, right? So I sent out, hey, what are the A words that could be leadership? What are the B words? And then the industry told me that it was attitude, balance, communication, decisive. Then I wrote the chapters, but every chapter ends with a vignette that is construction specific.
Check them out. Go get the books. Wally, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been a treat.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This, again, I'm going to say it, the facility that you guys have here, and I don't know if you've done a tour on the podcast yet of what you got here and the simulators over there and the classrooms over there. Obviously all your listeners get to see this, But there's some pretty cool stuff. And I remember correctly, if it's raining, you're training.
Raining, we're training. That's it. Wally, thank you so much.
Appreciate
Been a pleasure having you on.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Give Us the Dirt. Our podcast is powered by Hoopah Grading Company in Charlotte, North Carolina, and produced by Well Run Media and Marketing. Visit our website at giveusthedirtpodcast.com and subscribe to this podcast on Apple and Google so you never miss an episode.